We live in uncertain times where conflict is waged in shadows, through information, economics, and proxies. These gray zone wars feel new, but are they? We often study the Great Wars, World War II, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, but history is more than its greatest hits. Sometimes the most profound lessons come from overlooked conflicts. What if the answers to today's challenges lie in these forgotten chapters? In America's early years, the nation fought undeclared wars, faced internal rebellion, and struggled with messy foreign interventions. The Quasi-War with France, Shays Rebellion, and the U.S. Marines in Nicaragua, footnotes in textbooks, speak directly to our modern dilemmas. These stories remind us that conflict is subtle, complex, and deeply human. By revisiting these struggles, we gain new perspectives on our own time. Adaptability can outweigh brute force. National stability depends on justice for all, not just military might. Imposing our will abroad often brings unintended consequences. These are not simple tales with easy morals. They are complicated, messy, and deeply relevant. The echoes of these forgotten wars call out to us, offering guidance, if we're willing to listen. Let's rediscover their lessons for today. After the Revolution, America's alliance with France soured as the world changed. The French, at war with Britain, saw American neutrality as betrayal and began seizing U.S. merchant ships. This was the Quasi-War, undeclared, fought at sea, and defined by ambiguity. America, with no real navy, had to build one from scratch. Ships like the USS Constitution became symbols of resolve, tasked with hunting French privateers and protecting commerce. There were no grand battles, just cat-and-mouse chases and small-scale skirmishes across the Atlantic and Caribbean. The conflict was as much about diplomacy and economics as cannon fire. The infamous XYZ affair inflamed tensions, but President Adams resisted calls for all-out war. He kept the fight limited, understanding that a full-scale conflict with France would be disastrous for the young republic. The Quasi-War was America's first test in the murky world of undeclared, asymmetrical conflict. It forced the nation to adapt quickly, balancing defense with diplomacy. The war's true significance lay in what it wasn't, a total war, and in how it shaped America's approach to complex threats. It set a precedent for navigating the gray zones of international conflict. The lessons learned would echo far beyond the age of sail. America's first shadow war had begun. The Quasi-War proved that victory doesn't always come from overwhelming force. The U.S. Navy, outmatched in size, relied on speed, intelligence, and adaptability. American captains had to outthink and outmaneuver their opponents, shifting tactics daily. Informal intelligence networks, shared by captains, consuls, and merchants, became as vital as firepower. This early network-centric approach allowed the small fleet to strike where it mattered most. Decentralized command was crucial. Captains acted on their own initiative, seizing opportunities quickly. The vast theater of operations demanded trust in local commanders, not micromanagement from afar. These lessons resonate today in modern naval operations against piracy and hybrid threats. Success in the gray zones depends on presence, intelligence, and rapid response, not lining up for decisive battles. Small, agile forces that adapt to changing situations are key. The Quasi-War reminds us, flexibility and good intelligence are the true measures of strength. In uncertain times, adaptability trumps rigidity. The U.S. Navy's first test at sea became a blueprint for future conflicts. The lesson endures. In shadow wars, brains often beat brawn. America's early adaptability set the stage for modern security. Not all threats come from abroad, some arise from within. In 1786, Western Massachusetts farmers, many Revolutionary War veterans, faced crushing debt and taxes. The government demanded payment in scarce hard currency, seizing land and jailing those who couldn't pay. Betrayed by the nation they fought for, these men turned to protest. Led by Daniel Shays, they shut down courts and organized militias, calling themselves regulators. This was not a foreign invasion, but a domestic crisis fueled by economic injustice. The rebellion exposed the fragility of the young republic under the weak Articles of Confederation. Shays' rebellion sent shockwaves through the nation, revealing that internal unrest could threaten the American experiment. The founders saw that the greatest danger might come from neglecting their own citizens. The crisis forced a reckoning with the need for a stronger, fairer government. Shays' rebellion was a warning: ignore domestic grievances at your peril. The lesson still echoes today. Shays' rebellion was about more than economics. It was about broken promises to veterans. Soldiers returned from war unpaid, facing taxes and prison from the government they defended. Their rebellion was a cry for justice, exposing the link between national security and social fairness. When a nation neglects its veterans and common citizens, it breeds instability from within. The government's harsh response, raising a private army to crush the uprising, terrified leaders like George Washington. The crisis spurred the Constitutional Convention, leading to a stronger federal government. The echoes of Shays' rebellion persist in debates over inequality and veterans' care. A nation's strength is measured by its commitment to justice, not just its military. Ignoring legitimate grievances risks internal conflict. The founders learned, stability depends on fairness for all. The lesson remains urgent today. In the early 1900s, the U.S. intervened in Nicaragua, aiming for quick stability but ending up in a long occupation. Marines landed to protect American interests and prop up a friendly government, but their presence bred resentment. What began as a brief mission became a decade-long occupation with Marines as the real power in Managua. Many Nicaraguans saw this as colonialism, not stability. The U.S. became entangled in local politics, trying to build democracy while protecting its own interests, often at odds. In the late 1920s, General Augusto Sandino refused to surrender, launching a guerrilla war from the mountains. Sandino's insurgency, fueled by nationalism, frustrated the Marines, who were unprepared for asymmetrical warfare. The conflict dragged on, with the U.S. unable to fully defeat the rebels. The mission shifted from restoring order to costly, open-ended nation-building. In 1933, the U.S. withdrew, leaving behind a U.S.-trained National Guard that would enable decades of dictatorship. The intervention's unintended consequences shaped Nicaragua's future. The lesson: foreign interventions are rarely simple or short. Nation building is fraught with complexity and risk. America's shadow in Nicaragua still lingers. These forgotten conflicts are not relics, they're blueprints for today's challenges. The Quasi-War was an early hybrid war, blurring lines between war and peace, much like today's cyber attacks and economic warfare. Adversaries now operate in gray zones, avoiding direct confrontation but undermining our interests. Shays' rebellion shows that internal threats, born from economic injustice, can destabilize a nation as much as foreign enemies. Today's divisions echo those of the past. The Nicaraguan occupation warns of the perils of intervention and the power of insurgency fueled by nationalism. Small, determined forces can resist even the strongest occupiers. These stories connect. Flexible responses addressing root causes of unrest and humility in foreign policy are essential. The Quasi-War teaches adaptability, Shays' rebellion, the need for justice, Nicaragua, the limits of power. Together they offer a nuanced understanding of conflict. Victory is rarely simple. Success demands complexity and self-awareness. The past's lessons are more relevant than ever. We must heed them. What wisdom do these forgotten conflicts offer? First, adaptability. The Quasi-War showed that flexibility and intelligence matter more than brute force. In today's world of cyber threats and proxy wars, rigidity is a liability. Second, empathy. Shays' rebellion revealed that ignoring citizens' grievances, especially veterans, undermines national unity. Security depends on justice and fairness at home. Third, humility. Nicaragua proved that even powerful nations can falter when imposing solutions abroad. Good intentions aren't enough. Unintended consequences are real. Adaptability, empathy, and humility are not abstract, they're strategic necessities. These lessons, hard-won by sailors, farmers, and Marines, are vital for navigating today's complex world. Ignoring them risks repeating old mistakes. Embracing them builds resilience for the future. The Quasi-War, Shays' rebellion, and Nicaragua are just a few chapters in America's vast, often forgotten history. For every famous conflict, many more are overlooked, each with lessons to teach. History isn't static, it's a living source of insight. By exploring these hidden stories, we challenge our assumptions and gain perspective. The problems we face aren't new. Past generations grappled with similar dilemmas. Looking back builds national self-awareness and a deeper understanding of our choices. These unread chapters offer context for today's decisions. We must keep searching, reading, and listening. Somewhere in the forgotten past lies wisdom for a better, more secure future. The past is never truly past. Its lessons still matter.